What's up, everybody? It's Rip City Real Talk back for another episode. It's been a week since we chatted last, and we're ready to fire it up. How you doing, man?
Good, buddy. A little disappointed. Last time we were on the pod, I was just all rainbows and unicorns, super high on the Packers, Packers in the playoffs. I was very disappointed in that run. So, that's been a bummer. But other than that, things have been pretty good. Just getting out, enjoying some steelhead fishing. Uh, yeah, it's been pretty low key getting into these weird winter months. How about you?
Same. Just trying to find out ways to kill time till the weather's better with everything that's going on. It's really cold here, so and not a whole
Mhm.
lot going on in Blazerland, and the trade deadline's coming up. But this is actually a pretty big pod for us.
Yeah, we got quite a bit of stuff to talk about. We kind of brought up some stuff in the last episode that we wanted to see. That was mainly how CJ and Amp played together. Uh, that's going to be a big topic dealer. We have a pretty big injury to go over and how it's going to
Mm-hmm.
affect the team. And then you got some film that we're going to talk about. I haven't actually seen it, so I'm looking forward to breaking some of that down with you and talking about things we've seen. And then, of course, the trade deadline is looming about 10 days away on February 10th. So probably won't be the last time we talk trades. We're going to bring up some stuff, some things that we've seen floating around out there. And then obviously we'll probably do one more pod before the deadline hits a couple days before. By then we should have some really good juicy rumors that have been sitting on the smoker for a while.
Oh yeah. So you mentioned an injury. So
Yeah.
Nasir Little tore his shoulder, basically had to be shut down for surgery
Mm-hmm.
2 days ago, and he'll make a full recovery, but he's not going to play again this year. It sounds like.
Yeah. Officially announced today that
Hmm.
he's out. He's out for the rest of the season. So that's a
Stinks.
blow.
Yeah.
I mean, do we count it as a blow anymore? We're at that weird point in the season where you're sitting at the 10th seed, you're 4 games down from the 7th seed. I mean, that's probably the best you're gonna be able to shoot for. It's kind of a weird deal. It's like you and me have
Hmm.
talked about potentially tanking. I think we both agree it'd probably be best, but they're probably not gonna try to do it. So
Yeah.
this hurts because, quite frankly, he's one of your only forwards, only viable
Hmm.
forwards that you can put out there right now that has any kind of length. Nance has been hurt.
Hmm.
Obviously, Powell, who plays forward, isn't really a true forward.
Yeah.
So Nas has been, and he's been playing good. He's been playing good stretch minutes. He's got a couple things that he still needs to work on. He's had that for a couple of years now, but realistically, he's looked like a decent role playing small forward, whether that be off the bench or getting decent minutes for injuries coming off of coming off, but playing as a starter. So interested to see your take on that because it's kind of forced us to play Roko back in the starting lineup. He's been off the
Hmm.
bench the last couple of weeks, so he's back out there in the starting unit, and you still have no idea when you're going to get Nance back. He's kind of a little ways away, I think, and
Yeah. Well, Nasir Little was playing really well defensively too. I thought he was. I mean, I saw a stat today that he was ranked in the top 10 defenders over the last couple weeks on ball defense. I thought getting a lot of run out of Nasir over the next 2 months to end the season was going to be fantastic. And I really wanted to see how he gelled with some of these players. I thought him and Anthony were playing well when they played minutes together. Norman Powell and him are a really interesting fit if you're looking at like the 2-3 of the future, if you do want to move
mm-hmm.
either CJ and have Simons be a sixth man. So I'm really disappointed for Nas's sake because he was really starting to look confident out there and the hustle plays were looking really good. The thing for me though is I'm really starting to get nervous. I mean, I mentioned to you, I think it was 2, 3 pods ago. I feel like Nasir Little is a bit injury prone. Now, this is a
Yeah.
freak injury. This is something like the Nurkic injury from last year, where he missed half the season because he broke his hand or whatever. This shoulder tear is nothing to be concerned about long term, but it just seems like the injuries are starting to pile up for a guy like Nas. Reminds me of Zach Collins a little bit, where it's like when he's out there, he plays really hard and he plays well, but the potential is never realized because he's not on the floor long enough. So I don't know, man. It's devastating for sure. And I feel bad for Nasir Little because he's so young and he's trying to earn his contract, and the Blazers need him big time.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, you think about the foot injury. He had some COVID stuff last year. I mean, he missed quite a bit of time the last couple of years. This was his
Mm,
first real breakout year where he's played starting minutes and stretches. He's played a lot of minutes off the bench. I think
mm,
fans have been clamoring for him to get more time.
look great.
Really, the last 2 years,
Hmm.
Stotts kind of neglected to play him, and he had his liabilities. So I don't blame them for not playing in the last couple of years. But this is really the
This
first
was
chance that
it.
he's had to break out, especially with the injuries, Dame going down for so long and the team kind of in that weird funk of the middle of the pack in the West, really not necessarily shooting. I mean, always shooting for playoffs, but the aspirations are a little limited, right? You make it, you're probably not going very far, and at this point, it's kind of a struggle to make it. So this was the type of year to really get Nas out there to play big minutes. And really see what he's going to be able to blossom into. And he very well looked like he was going to earn at least a bench role, a prominent bench role on this team going forward. I don't necessarily think that's not going to still be the case. I think he's going to be cheap. But what is your take with him going forward now? We were seeing some flashes. Boom, bulb out. He's gone. No light. Where's
I'm
his take his career going forward, do
I'm
you think?
committed to Nasir Little and seeing where the next 3 to 4 years are for him. I mean, I saw comparisons to Gerald Wallace this year. I saw some people compare him to Kawhi a little bit. I don't think that that's really a fair comparison, but I do think that he has all the tools that
That's a
you
bit
need to
much.
get to these. Yeah, exactly. I saw those and was like, "Are you kidding me?" But I do think Nasir Little has the potential to reach a very high potential in that tweener, small forward, power forward role. I think the Blazers are wing starved, so they need guys that can be on ball defenders, that can make the hustle plays the way that Nasir does. And like you said, he's going to be cheap. I think we should stay committed to him, give him a full rehab, and let him come back next year and just see what happens. The other thing is, this team does not have a lot of high potential wings. I mean, Tony Snell and Ben McLemore and all these guys are kind of retreads of former other teams. But the Blazers drafted Nasir Little. He was a insanely talented player coming out of North Carolina who just didn't have a long career in college, and there was massive upside. So I want to see what he can do. I just really wish he could stay healthy.
Agreed. I think he can give you the same kind of production and role that both the Bridges out there,
Ooh,
Phoenix and Charlotte, that not quite
it's
as
close.
powerful attacking the rim, but he can still do it. And he's got that athleticism. His shot has gotten better every single
Mm-hmm.
year. He's
Mm-hmm.
respectable from behind the arc. And I think if anything, you get a poor man's Jeremy Grant. We've been talking about Jeremy Grant a lot. I'm not
Yeah.
going to stop talking about Jeremy Grant because he's the pipe dream. He's kind of sucks that his name's like the number one name
Mm-hmm.
on the trade deadline because I was really hoping that Blazers could sneak in there and then throw CJ or Amp out of Detroit for him. But here we are. But that's the kind of guy that I think Little could get if he was to play 25 minutes a game. I don't
Yeah.
think that's realistic for him on this team, but I would love to see them give him a 1 year deal. 1
Mm-hmm.
year, see what he can give you after like 5 mil. See what he can do. And then if he continues to stay healthy, he continues to show the improvement that he's showed the last really couple of years, and especially this year, then I think you
Mm-hmm.
can look into a 3 year deal, 4 year deal going forward. And then that's kind of at that point, you're 1, 2, you got 2 deals into the Powell situation, so then you can look at
Mm-hmm.
potentially trading Powell. Now you have your small forward of the future. You get off Powell's contract. A lot of things open up if Little can
Yeah.
continue to
And
show that he can grow.
so I looked it up just now. So he's eligible for a rookie extension. He made 2.3 this year. You could
Mm-hmm.
give him the 5th year, the 5 year thing. It's like 4.1 million this
I think
year.
you do it.
Absolutely. And then you could do a qualifying offer the year after of like 6 million. So it's going to be really hard to find a wing with higher potential for 5-ish million per year. I
No,
think you
but
got to do that.
if it pans out and you do end up keeping Norman Powell on this team, I think it allows you to trade Powell down the road.
Yeah.
So and
I
that
love
depends on a
Norman.
lot of other stuff that we're going to talk about in a
Right.
second. But yeah, so bummer about him. I hope he recovers quickly and swiftly.
Mm-hmm.
As a fan, it's sucks because he's going on such a good upwards trajectory.
Yeah.
As I'll call it analysis or people that cover the team in an unofficial capacity, kind of see this coming. We've talked about injuries
Mm-hmm.
before. You brought it up multiple times in this podcast. And we brought it up in the offseason that getting guys like Nance and Zeller and now Little, just you run a lot of injury risk with your taller players on this team. So not something I was totally caught off guard by. Like, oh
Yeah.
no, Nas is out again. But at the same
Surprising,
time,
right?
it's
We
a
mentioned
bummer.
it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. What did you think of? So we talked a little bit about CJ and Anthony playing together.
Yeah,
We only had one game of that when we recorded our last pod, but what do you think of this tandem, this backcourt over the last week?
I mean, it's exactly what I expected. I
Yeah.
expected them both to get a lot of offense, to shoot a lot, volume scores as they are,
Mm-hmm.
to not have a lot of defense, and
Yeah.
I think that's exactly where we've been. I mean, both guys are putting up 20 plus a night pretty consistently. I mean, if there's a couple flukes here and there, but the last few weeks since CJ came back, you're beating up on bad teams. Uh, which is great, and then you're losing to the good teams. It's no different than what we've been talking about and kind of what we expected this next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, last few weeks. We said next couple of weeks in the previous pod, but exactly what we expected from this team going forward. Like, you get blown out by the Nuggets, and then you go around and you crush the Wizards and the Magic, and then you lose to the Heat, and then, you know what I mean? It's kind of
Yeah,
like
get
you
thumped by the
continue to have
Bulls.
these situations. Boston was a great win,
Mm-hmm.
but that was kind of the only one that really stood out to me. And
Yep.
this is just where we're at with these two guys. They're just going to have trouble slowing down good players, but they're going to put up big shots.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this is the same future that you're going to see even with Dame sliding into either one of those guys' role, whether he's playing point guard with Anthony and CJ's gone, or you keep CJ and Anthony comes off the bench and you still have the same Dame and CJ dynamic, or James just demands out and you have to run CJ and Ant. Either way, you're going to have the
Yeah.
same problem with these guards. So not anything crazy. I'm glad that Amp has kept up the production. We were a little concerned about whether or not he was going to continue to stay hot, because
Mm-hmm.
when you're a volume scorer, you have to really have the ball in your hands. You have to feel confident and consistent, and he's done that. So I was worried about CJ taking a little bit more of the offense from him and him slinking back down to that 15, 16 points, really relying on the three ball, which he has.
Yes.
Just did a lot of his scoring, but he's done good. He's still drawing some fouls. He's still doing everything he was doing when CJ was out and Dame was out, and leading the
Mm-hmm.
team offensively. And that's good
Yep.
to see. I mean, that helps us in a lot of ways.
It does. I mean, like you said, there's a redundancy. They're both negatives on the defensive end, so you're going to get run out of the gym a lot on the defensive end when they're shooting really well and they're each scoring 25 plus, which is something that they did this last week. It's going to look good, and both of them are beautiful scorers. What I mean by that is CJ isolation ball is just it's a thing of beauty, man. He can create space in so many
Yeah.
ways. It's just so crafty. And I've got some clips that I'm going to show here in a minute of Anthony Simons too, taking big leaps and doing things that he couldn't do last year or even the year before. You can tell that he's like a sponge, sort of absorbing all these different moves and techniques from Dame and CJ. But at the end of the day, it's just redundancy. And I love their game and I respect their game. But when you have ball dominant guards who are undersized, which Anthony Simons is 6'4", he's not exactly undersized, but you have basically 3 or 4 point guards that you're running every single night. It's it makes for a really difficult challenge on the defensive end.
Yeah, agreed. The combo guard thing only gets you so far. It's only
Yeah.
gotten this team so far the last few years.
Yeah.
And to me, Anthony's just another CJ. So
Mm.
I mean, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah, I think I have a clip here. Hold on. I think I have a clip that I can basically prove this. So I'm going to show you a few plays from the most recent, or not the most recent game, 2 games ago, which was the Rockets game last week on January 28th. So,
And where'd you get this footage from, bud?
oh, yep, got this footage from NBA.com's YouTube page. So I'm going to link it in the description below. But you should be watching highlights every single night of the Blazers, because even games that I watch full games, I go back and watch the highlights and I try to isolate like one player, for example. Really fun, really enjoyable, and I actually learned things just from watching film. So I'll play this through from the NBA YouTube page here. So in the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to watch this play right here. Watch Anthony Simons and what he's about to do. Nurkic gets the ball. He cuts.
Boom.
He's been making this pass right here, this little corner dime right here. And he's been looking for shooters in the corners more. And then I want to watch the next play too. So this is Norm making a nice pass.
To Rocco. Yep. Is that what I'm looking at?
This
Oh,
is
is this
Dennis
it?
Smith
This
Jr.
is coming up.
Skip ahead just a little bit.
Look at Norm driving. See, Norm can do it all. They're just
I like
proving
Norm.
my point.
Kind of a Norm guy. Hold on, this play is going to happen, then it goes to another Anthony Simons play here.
Good, because you're showing me dunks against my team, and I'm just not super thrilled by it. Here we go.
Oh, Norm's so nasty, but he missed it. All right, here comes Ant again. All right, so if you watch Ant on this play, this is something I don't think he could do last year, and this is something that I want to highlight on the offensive end. He's running the pick and roll. Watch him create space.
Yes, the little step back.
So that's a CJ move right there. And that's why I talk about like redundancy. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but this little push off thing, this shimmy push off, that's a CJ move right there. So I think Anthony Simons is making offensive leaps, and I'm not saying the Blazers shouldn't try to retain him or make him a sixth man or even a starting two guard. I'm totally fine with that. The problem is when you have Dame and CJ, it becomes ridiculously redundant, and you've got to figure out a solution to that. And I think it's trade CJ. We've talked about it for years, but
well, that's the big thing with this team. We've talked about it for weeks now, and it's really the Anthony Simons dilemma. It's the same as we had with the Gary Trent dilemma. Obviously, a little different. Trent wasn't playing as good as Ant is right now, but at the same time, that kind of comes down to the money, right? And that's where you run into the fact that you're going to have to pay Amp. And if you're going to pay Amp, he's probably going to get 18, 19 mil.
I'm hearing 20. I'm hearing 20
but we thought
year.
20 for Powell. I mean, we thought 20 for Trent, and they were both in that 18, 19 mil range.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well round up. Let's call it 20 because it's
Sure.
about the same thing as far as what it's going to do to your
thing.
team. It's no different. So let's say 20 mil. I mean, okay. So this is assuming, again, that you have this dilemma of whether or not you trade CJ. I've heard rumblings, and we'll get into that in the second half of the pod. But let's say that you trade CJ. All right, you trade him away for whatever you trade CJ away for. Now you've opened up the cap. Now you pay Anthony 20 mil. Okay, so now you run into the situation where you still have Powell playing small forward, probably. And that's 40 million plus Dame just continuing to go up. You're looking at, again, another 80 to 90 mil between three guards. This is the same thing we're into with Trent when we're talking about whether or not we need to bring Trent back.
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense.
No, because you're not going to pay him $20 million to come off your bench. That's just it's not feasible, and you shouldn't do it, which means he becomes your starting two. That's what it's going to be. He's still going to be a liability on defense. We're going to run into the same thing with the younger CJ. I'm sorry. I know this comparison's getting beaten to the ground by us, but I feel like that's what it's going to be. Threes. He's going to continue to shoot a lot of threes, and he's going to, he's added more to his game. He showed us in that highlight, but the defense isn't going to be there. He's not going to slow anybody down. Maybe he bulks up. He has the length and athleticism to become a better defender, and he's only 22, so there is always that chance that he pivots to being a reliable defender, but it just hasn't been there. And I feel like you get a little worried as long as you're running him next to Dame when you could go out and try to get a forward and move Powell down to that spot.
And you're talking about Norman Powell could play the two on a really reasonable contract. He attacks the rim really hard. He plays good point of attack defense, so he's probably a better fit with Dame. Yes, it's not going to be as explosive an offense as Anthony Simons, who can get 30 any given night, because he has that really, like we talked about, he has the ability to create space, and he has a really high quick release on his three. He was dropping some threes this week that were just a thing of beauty, but you can't have him next to Dame because Dame is a ball dominant guard. So what's going to end up happening is you're going to have the same thing. Dame and Simons are both going to score 25, and we're going to give up 60 on the defensive end with the two of them on the floor, because it just doesn't make sense. You need a complementary two guard to Dame, and that's what Norman Powell is. I feel like he's going to be a much better fit, and you're going to get more defensive length and athleticism from 2 to 5, which is something I'm really critical of.
No, I mean, there's no other way to put it. We've been a top offensive team for years. CJ and Dame put up 50 plus points a night. We've been one of the highest combination of guards in the league as far as scoring, historically good.
Okay, but this is kind of a nasty little play at Anth. Watch this next one. Okay, so this is another thing you worked on in the offseason a lot. This next play right here, he's got the ball in the pick and roll with Nurk, and Nurk's going to roll. Watch this pass he makes right here. His court vision, he can play point guard for a team. The Knicks should be calling and trying to get Anthony Simons from us, because he's going to blossom into a really good point guard. His patience in the pick and roll, the way that he's hostage dribbling people and keeping a defender behind him, and then gravitationally pulling the other defenders in, it was apparent in the film this week. I watched a lot of film on Anthony Simons, and he's getting better as a point guard.
Yeah. No, we talked about the last couple of years. We've been right there with, I think, Danny Meringue and some other guys that have been high on Amp, but his decision-making in the last few years has gotten better and better. Now that he's actually out there playing big minutes and getting this kind of run and playing with confidence, he has hit a much higher percentage of passes, and he's getting the ball to open shooters in the corner. He's doing stuff like that. He's been great, and this is fine and dandy. Again, his offensive game is not a problem. It's not going to be a problem for him. He's going to go out there and be really good, but I just don't see a world where you can pay him, Dame, and Norman Powell and continue to run Powell at your three. I mean, the small guard thing, the
It's not
guard
going to
lineup is
work.
just not going to work.
It's not going to
So
work. And if we're going to talk ourselves into a healthy Dame being the answer, we've already seen this formula multiple times from the
yeah,
Blazers. It's just not good enough.
exactly. So, but it's cool to see him continue to
Yeah,
play good. I mean, either way, we have
he's a
10
good
days.
kid.
We're going to talk more about him and the trade packages coming up and some different things like that. But continues to play hot. We wanted to see him play with CJ. I've seen him play with CJ to know that he's here to stay. This is it. I
Yes.
was worried about him taking that step back. He didn't look great to me earlier in the year when some guys were down with injuries and he was starting.
Mm-hmm.
Now he looks like the real deal, the full package. So happy for him. And the last guy to talk about, I believe, before we get into a few other things, is Nurk. Man, we were hyping him up last week, talking about him back. The beast is here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sick with Nurk fever. It's been great. I haven't gotten any better. I haven't found the cure, my friend. It is it is still coming. The guy has just been absolutely monstrous. 20-point nights here and there, double doubles left and right, blocking shots. I mean, he looks like a healthy, dominant version of the early Nurk that we
Mm-hmm.
traded for that caught everybody on this team and fandom by storm.
Yeah, Nurk's been amazing the last 2-3 weeks. I think he plays better when we give him an offensive workload, when he's not just trying to clean things up, do the ugly center stuff. Now, Nurkic is never going to be ball dominant. He's never going to get a ton of plays ran for him when you have Dame and CJ healthy or Dame and Simons, whichever backcourt you prefer. But it's been cool to watch. Like Nurkic has been really good, and he's been looking for. I found a bunch of film this week, and I don't have like a lot of good clips that where they were back to back, but I found some clips of Nurkic actually finding mismatches in the paint and going hard on dudes, like just banging them down, turning his back, actually finishing at the rim. Now that is a point of contention. He has struggled at times lately. The last 2 games, actually, I found a lot of kind of flip shot misses, but that's part of Nurk's game. He's gonna miss some shots. I think you just live and die with Nurkic getting you like 20 and 12. He was really good the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, this has been a thing, and it's interesting because it's a contract year for him. Obviously, we all know that. So that puts pressure on
Yes.
Portland because he's already taken I mean, realistically, a team friendly deal in my opinion. The last contract that he signed, which is a good deal. I mean, the center market wasn't super heavy then. Center market's not going to be super heavy. It never is anymore. This big
Mhm.
guys like this just don't go out there and garnish as much money, but you are talking probably 15, 17 mil now over the course of 3 to 4 years.
It's
It's going to be
hard.
hard for Portland to bring it back, no?
It's hard. It's difficult, and you and I have this conversation almost every day, right? Like I'll send you a name and be like, "Is this somebody that you think is an upgrade over Nurkic?" And in almost every case, if it's an acquirable center, they are not better than Nurkic. Nurkic's skill set is very unique. He does. There's not a lot of guys like him in the league that can get 20, 10, and maybe 5, 6 assists for you too. The other thing about Nurkic is we've been critical of him in the past about durability. I'm really hard on Nurkic because I always say, oh, he can't play
Mm-hmm.
30 plus minutes and he can't play every single game. He's done that this year. He's proven me completely wrong. So I don't really have a whole lot else to say other than if he's going to come back in a way we can afford him, I don't see how you can do better. I mean, yes, you can go get Valanciunas, but like you said, they're pretty lateral at where they're at in their career. Valanciunas is not really a lot better for what Portland needs. And I just don't know how you're going to replace Nurkic. Now, is his game going to age? He's already lost a step, it feels like, especially on the defensive end. He's not near the rim protector he was 2-3 years ago. But I don't know, man. The Nurkic conundrum is not one that I would want to deal with right now. I do not want to hand that guy $18 million per year for the next 3.
You can't. I mean, I don't think you can.
Can't.
He just can't, especially not. I mean, even if you keep CJ at this point, I mean, with the Anthony stuff coming up and Powell's contract and Dame just continuing to go up like one of those little bar graphs of a successful business, I mean, it's just going to be ridiculously hard
Yes.
to fathom bringing him back. But it's also hard to let him go, and that's why cash clearing is going to be such a big deal. Because if you move off CJ, and you potentially, even if you trade a Powell, like if you find a way to get off that contract, or you
Mm-hmm.
decide to trade Anthony now, and we're going to get into some of these scenarios here in a minute, but if you decide to get rid of some of those guys, now you've made some money back. If you can pull off a feasible trade to go get a player for 20 million Now you've opened up some cash by trading away CJ. It's $10+ million that you have back in your pocket that you might be able to offer him and
Hmm.
keep this team around the same spot that they're in
Yeah.
financially. But it's going to be that's going to be a big ticket. We're going to be talking about it a lot in the next couple of days, really the next 10 days. Nurkic himself has come out. This was a
Hmm.
report and said that he
Hmm.
talked to Cronin and that he's not going anywhere, and neither is CJ. Now, obviously, this is completely unofficial. We have no idea how sincere that is. But according to him, in conversations he's had, he's like, I'm not worried about being traded. Like,
Hmm.
it's not going to happen. So you're looking at that offseason conundrum if you decide not to trade him. And quite frankly, as long as they're in a playoff position, and technically we are in 10th place in the West right now, 4 games out of 7th, you're right there in the thick of the play-in tournament. And if you can get to 7 or 8, you only have to win the one game there. Um, you're not going to trade away a guy like Nurk, CJ. Maybe you make a move on because of how good Amp has been, but they're in playoff contention, a chance to get the 7 and 8 seed. Throughout the next couple months, plenty of time to play in the rest of the season. So
Yeah.
I just don't see a world where you get rid of a guy who's playing at the level of, that he is from a big man perspective. But not to mention, we don't have any other big men because guess what? Zeller's hurt again.
Yeah. I just think the scarcity of good fives is really apparent. Now, I would like to play smaller. I would really like to be able to play with Larry Nance as a small ball five. That's something I've been a proponent of for years, but
Mm-hmm.
it just never works out for the Blazers because we're already small 1 through 3. So now you're going to give up size at 4 of your 5 positions. It just doesn't logically make sense. So then the other thing I keep going back to is get a rim protecting center. Go get Hassan Whiteside. Well, we did that, right? We completely did that. Okay, get a guy who does the ugly, dirty work like Enes Kanter. Okay, we did that. It's really hard to upgrade that 5 spot and do it at a place where it doesn't kill you financially. So I don't know. I really don't have the answer to this one. I do love Nurkic's play, but I feel like it's a contract year situation and it's not consistent.
That's the thing, right? That's the big discussion is whether or not this is just a contract situation and lack of Dame. I mean, the team's not playing with the
That's
normal
a good one too.
arsenal of guys.
Yeah.
He's getting an extra run because there's no Zeller and Nance to back him up. And quite frankly, we don't have another big man. I mean, Greg Brown, I guess. But it's just like, of course,
I got
he's
a big
looking good
man
right
for you.
now. And that's the kind of thing that fans need to watch out for is that fool's gold package
Yes.
of this is a lot to do with the current climate of the team and
Hmm.
maybe not as much of just consistent Nurk. I mean, I hope that it stays. I've been really enjoying it. I'm telling you, I've got the fever for sure. But
Yeah,
I just worry that this is a product of where the team's at right now, the players that are out there, the way that the offense is rolling. And I
I
hope
agree.
that it continues, but it's going to be really tricky. And we're going to talk more about it come the offseason because I don't think
Yep.
he's a guy getting traded.
I got a big man for you. You want to see some big man highlights?
Okay, sure.
All
Yeah, got
right.
some more highlights for me. Let's
Here you
see.
go.
What we got? What
Ready?
we got?
I want you to watch this because this is something I didn't know he had. Trendon Watford actually has an interesting defensive profile. So I'm going to show you something in this next clip here. So two games ago, 3 games ago against Chicago. Okay,
Yep.
watch him right here. He's actually guarding DeMar DeRozan. Now, DeMar DeRozan is going to make the shot. So I don't want anybody to focus on that, but DeMar DeRozan makes every shot, dude. He roasted us in this game, and he's been roasting everybody this year. But I want you to watch Trendon Watford's feet because for a rookie who's kind of a power forward, small forward guy he's a rookie and he only played 2 years in college. I really want you to watch this dude's feet because he can shuffle pretty good. Look at this. He's staying in front of DeMar a lot, and he doesn't eat. That's a pretty questionable foul, right? Like it could have gone either way, but I thought that was good defense out of Trendon.
Yeah, that's a rookie mistake when he felt for the pump fake. I mean, the
Yeah.
veterans are going to get you every time.
Yeah.
But I agree,
Okay.
and I feel like we talked about this during the summer league. If people can remember way back in the summer league, I was all on the Watford chain. I
Mm-hmm.
was telling you, man, he reminded me a lot of what Gary Trent gave you. It's not super pretty all the
Yep.
time, and it doesn't have the offensive game. It's very
It's not good yet.
unpolished,
Mm-hmm.
but the athleticism and the side and that dog fight in him is definitely there, and that's been
Yeah.
there since really the summer league. And it's kind of interesting to watch him and Greg Brown get minutes because of the injuries to really see kind of where these guys are at. I'm not a huge fan of Greg Brown personally. I
Yeah.
love the dunks, they're fun, don't get me wrong. I mean, garbage time, I'm all here for the windmills and all the
Yeah.
fun stuff. Watford, I think, can earn a role in this
He's
team.
I guess he's 6'8", so he's like Nasir Little size, right? Like he's a small forward. But here's another one. The next play here, I'm gonna roll through. DeMar DeRozan again is gonna. Oh, I forgot about the pass play in the middle. That was a beautiful little quick read. Okay, watch him here. He's on DeMar again. He stays
Boom,
right in
boom,
front of him.
boom, right in front of him. Beautiful. And
Now,
made the shot again.
but that's a really hard shot. Like if you watch this again, like this is stuff
But
that's.
notice how DeRozan doesn't get around him. He has to force a far jump shot. Like that's a
That's
long
it.
shot.
That's exactly what I saw when I watched that play. I was like, that's actually a really tough shot. And yes, guys like DeMar and Dame and Curry, they're going to hit that shot. But if you're pressuring an average offensive player that way, you're probably going to win that battle 8 out of 10 times, maybe more. I thought that was
Agreed.
really good.
No, 100%. And that's the kind of stuff that as he grows and gets minutes, especially with injuries and things, the next 3 years, we're right back to talking about the Gary Trent role, right?
Yes.
I mean, again, I know he's a little bit bigger than Trent, but he has that kind
That
of
small forward
weird
caliber
attitude about him. Yeah, it's,
Mhm.
Trent was like 6'4", 6'3", somewhere around in there. He wasn't very big, but I just feel like that mentality and that play style is here in a bigger body. And you talk about wings and you talk about stuff. He's never going to be an offensive guy. He's not going to go out here and shoot a bunch of threes. He can do some damage down low, sure, against a good matchup, but it's going to be the hustle plays and it's going to be that defense that's going to earn him spots and potentially closing minutes down the road. Now, we're talking years. Don't read too far into that yet. I'm
It's just
talking
exciting.
years, but
It's
I do.
exciting to have young guys that are good. I mean, and that's the thing with Nasir Little. You could see flashes at times. Trendon Watford has flashes. It's mostly only on the defensive end, and then like you saw in that play in the middle there, he makes good reads and great passes. He has that in his game already. He just doesn't have the shooting touch yet.
No, I
He'll
love
get
what
there.
I'm seeing from Watford, and it's really
Yeah.
good that he's getting the minutes because he's a guy that I've since summer league been really stoked and undrafted. I mean, he has that extra kind of fight in him and that underdog mentality that
Good
this team
find.
needs stuff like that. So really cool. So good for him.
Yeah, he's a good kid. Those
Okay.
are all the highlights I had. I just wanted to show those two things. I mean, I think Anthony's offensive game being better and him exploiting patience is really cool. And Watford, I wanted to show you some defensive stuff. And both of them are probably going to get a lot of run here at the end of the year, unless Larry Nance gets healthy or whatever needs to happen. His return is indefinite, by the way. We have no idea what's going on with Larry Nance.
I mean, we knew about it. It's
a knee thing.
We're just talking about the same thing that we talked about at the beginning of the season and the offseason. We were sitting there talking with Steve. We mentioned Zeller and Nance, and we talked about getting bigs that are injury prone that have consistently in the last few years, not once, not even twice, but multiple times through multiple years and seasons, guys don't play full seasons. And it's kind of risky when you have a guy like Nurk and you have these guys as your backup. And really, Nurk's come to play and he's been fine. He's been out there minutes, like you mentioned, and all that stuff. But the backup role, killer. And if you do make the playoffs, if you don't have healthy bigs, it don't matter. It doesn't matter. You put up points all day. It's not going to matter when you're going up against Anthony Davis's and the Rudy Gobert's and the Jokic's of the world.
Yeah, you want to go play Ayton in the first round and try to stop their guards. We already tried that.
Yeah,
it's been rough, dude.
So before we get into some of the trade stuff, we've heard some different things throughout the last week and a half or so. I wanted to, speaking of big man, a guy who, by the way, we're going to mention in a trade talk because it's come up, but it's our favorite segment, buddy. It's it. Yeah, I know. Look how excited you get. It makes me, it warms my heart.
I love it, dude. This is a dope segment.
So stoked just to announce it. So blazing new trails. Ex-player of the pod. I don't want to say week anymore because we're not in a weekly schedule now, but the ex-player of the pod, Ed Davis. Ooh, physical Ed. Yeah, that's it. Ripping the shirt with the Rip City tees. Remember the tees were a thing? They like everybody hated them.
We hated
LeBron
those.
Ripped his
off. Yeah.
Yeah. But there you go, buddy. Physical Ed Davis.
Easy
Ed. One of my favorite Blazers. Honestly, he was Enes Kanter before there was an Enes Kanter offensive rebounding machine for the Blazers. A lot of fans may not even remember that he was a Blazer, and I feel bad for you, but he was here with the LaMarcus days. He was here during the early Dame days, and love him. He's actually starting now in Cleveland because Jared Allen's been hurt. So he's on a playoff contending team. Him and Kevin Love both resurrected their careers, playing really good, over there with Evan Mobley, the sensational rookie.
Jeez.
So it's good to see. It's good to see Ed out there. He was hurt for a while. He missed a lot of time. He's kind of floated around Brooklyn. I think he was with Utah for a little bit there, but never really got any plays. He's been hurt since he left. Literally the year that Blazers let him go. we
Yep.
he just never played a game. But
Hmm.
now he's back and he's playing starting minutes, and I love it. And he's actually come up in some trade talks with Cleveland. Again, I shouldn't say talks. When I say talks, I mean rumors. There's nothing
Rumors.
official. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Rumors that we've seen on the tweeters and some of the media people have thrown out as suggestions and
Hmm.
stuff. We're gonna kind of dive into that. But he's been one of those names that continues to pop up. Him and Chetty. It's
Chetty
a weird
Osman.
Chetty Osman
Hmm.
as a potential Portland deal, which is kind of interesting to me because I don't know what Portland would trade out except for maybe Powell or Nurk at that point
Hmm.
to clear up some cash. It's not like
Hmm.
they need any more bigs. Jared Allen's playing at a great level.
No.
Kevin Love's fine, and they got Evan Mobley. And it's not like
Hmm.
they want guards unless they're not planning on bringing back Sexton.
So since Sexton's hurt right now and Rubio's hurt right now, so what they're thinking is that they would take one of our guards on as just a rental. I mean, if you take on CJ and you can dump Chetty Osman and you can get off of
But our
Ed's
guards aren't
contract.
rentals. Like they're long contracts.
I, Dude, I know. I mean, it's really hard. If you had CJ on like an expiring deal or a 2-year deal, it would make a lot more sense. But for them to absorb his salary or Norm's next 4 years, it's kind of a weird
Not to
like.
mention unless they get off Kevin Love, and you got to pay Sexton or
I
Garland.
think they would have to. I mean, I almost think that they would have to include Kevin Love in that deal because it's
Mm.
so much money. I don't see how that trade feasibly actually happens. But I do love Ed Davis. He is probably one of my favorite underrated Blazers. I love that guy.
He's great, and he's a perfect backup
Hmm.
big in any team. He's one of those guys you can throw out there that just hustles consistently, gets decent
Look
rebounds, going to
great.
throw up offensive boards left and right and putbacks. I mean, the guy
Hmm.
got putbacks for us just nonstop. He was awesome. So, uh, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I feel in a trade of that situation. It's come up him and Chetty Osman. And I listen, Chetty's fine.
Hmm.
I mean, you could probably throw him off the bench. He could probably start at
Yeah,
small forward if
he could.
depending on what you were to give up in that deal. Like if you were to go and give up a guy like Norman Powell, and this is, they could put Garland to keep him at point guard and they put Powell at their guard or whatever they do, then the money is feasible and Blaze is probably get a deal because you're getting a cheaper end of that bargain and you save some cap and you got rid of Powell and it
Yeah.
allows you to play around with some stuff. But
Well, and Chetty Osman's under contract for 2 more years. So what you end up getting is you get a wing that's cheap for a couple more years. So I mean, I get it, but he's not going to light your world on fire. He's not going to make it a championship contender. He's just a kind of above average role player at small forward. But
yep. Plus, I don't think there's much gravity there. We just have to do the Ed Davis thing. So,
no, Ed
but
Davis
there
though.
was a trade, a couple. Not everyone called it a trade, but some stuff
Yeah.
that's come up recently that does have or it had some traction to it. You've been
Mm,
talking about it. You sent it to me. We've been chatting.
yep.
Has to do with New Orleans, the Valanciunas hard or hard. What did I say?
Hmm.
Hard
Josh Hart.
heart.
Yep.
Yeah, Hart. And I believe the other person in that there was another person in that deal, but the main core was Hart and
Yeah.
Valanciunas, and that had to do with the CJ move.
Hmm.
So there was some small potential there. What is your take on that, man? Because that gets a little weird with we talked about the Nurk versus Valanciunas thing. You brought it up earlier in this pod briefly,
Hmm.
but you can't run them both. I imagine the
Yep.
contracts are. I mean, your Nurk's walking into the year, so if anything, you have two really dominant big men for the rest of the year, and then Nurk walks, and you have for about the same price, if not even a tiny bit cheaper, you have Valanciunas for a couple more years.
Yeah.
Are
Let
you
me
good
look
on
up
that?
I'm gonna look up Valanciunas' contract because I'm curious how long he is under
I believe it's
contract.
14 mil for 2 years, 2 more years.
Yep, 2 years, 14 per. Yeah, I mean, look, I mentioned it earlier. I like Valanciunas. I think he's good. I don't think he's an upgrade over Nurk. And I think if you're getting rid of CJ and you're bringing in Josh Hart, he's going to play some minutes for you as like an undersized wing. He's probably a shooting guard, can play a little bit of small forward. He's a really good rebounder for his size and position, but I just think it's about getting off of CJ's money. You want to create
Yeah,
time and money to give to Simons. You want to develop Anthony Simons because of two reasons. Number one, he can play for you next season and probably give you similar numbers as CJ. And number two, God forbid Dame doesn't come back and look like himself or comes back and says he wants to be traded and win a championship to another team. You never know what the next 2, 3 years. I know Dame is the most loyal person in sports and for the Blazers, but it'd be nice to have a really young Anthony Simons under a 4 or 5 year deal at like 18 to 20 mil per. He can drop a lot. He can gain a lot in his game. He has a lot more potential. I just think it makes sense. You and I have been talking about trading CJ for 2 years. Other teams and other people felt like Dame and CJ were a good backcourt and we could win and we could be a top 4 team in the West. I disagree with that. I don't think that's a good. I don't think that's accurate. I just don't, and I'm not saying that Anthony Simons is an upgrade in any way over CJ. I just think that saving a little bit of money at the position is going to help in the long run.
Yeah, and the Hart's I think about 12 mil, if I'm not
That's
mistaken.
that's a lot of
11,
money for
12.
him.
And then so you look at him and Valanciunas, if that was the conversation piece, and you're looking at 26, you're really not. You're only a couple mil down from where you are with CJ, but you do have a center locked up at probably a better deal than you're going to get Nurk for.
Yep.
At least pretty similar. And Hart's interesting to me. I love Hart. He's on my fantasy basketball team. Thanks, bud. And he's become a really, really, really good do-it-all guard.
Yep, he can.
Rebounding is one of the best rebounding guards in the league, period.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's top 3, I'm pretty sure. I mean, he averages almost 9 rebounds, 10 rebounds a game for a guard. But the dude also gets a bunch of assists. He's a very good passer and playmaker. His problem is size. So if you bring him in here, I think it allows you to put Powell back at shooting guard, and you can put Hart out at small forward. He's a good defender for his size.
Yeah.
Again, you run into the whole small guard thing. But if you're moving CJ, and even if you decide to bring Amph back, you still have that whole Powell Hart conundrum now that you got to deal with. And if you don't move Powell, then you probably have to put Powell at shooting guard and put Hart at forward, and then you bring Amph off the bench. That or you put Powell off the bench, which I don't care for. But
yeah, I want to start Norman Powell. I think you start Norman Powell, bring Simons off the bench. You play Josh Hart sparingly, like you said, 12. He makes 13 mil next year. That's tough, but you could probably move that too. You could probably package that up and move that around and do different things. The problem right now is you just can't really find teams that are able to take on CJ with the salary match that are going to have a decent package to sort of swap you with. There's a lot of teams that could take CJ, but they have to be in the right place. They have to be a team that wants to go for it. They have to be a team that has enough money to give you back and not lose one of their good players. Like, I don't think Cleveland wants to give us Kevin Love for CJ. That team would make sense. But yeah, I was going to say it's kind of a tough sell. So you look at New Orleans and you say, okay, they have Brandon Ingram, they have Zion. They really need a guy that can create their own shot. And CJ is a veteran leader. If they feel like they're ready to push and Zion comes back healthy this year, CJ would make a ton of sense for the next 2 to 3 years for them. But I don't know.
Well, that's the thing with CJ. We've talked about it. I mean, he's best suited for that team that is right there. Like let's say a 6, 7, 8 type of team in their respective conference.
Yes.
And they're just at that verge of needing one more star player to push them into the top 4 echelon and get them a chance to get to a conference championship or even the finals. You know, it's like you look at Milwaukee the last couple of years when they made the big move to get Drew Holiday. I mean, it's kind of a similar situation. Maybe.
Yes.
I think that's where TJ fits. I think that's why, for me, Philly made so much sense for so long. With Ben Simmons wasn't panning out, you get a guy to pair with Embiid and Harris. I think there's a lot of teams that CJ can kind of fit into that weird little bubble of a team that's right on that cusp of needing that extra guard. So I do think there's a value out there for him, but it's agreed. It's what you get back, because the reason those teams are in that situation is because they have usually young guys that are up and coming that have finally started to pan out. They've probably got another star, and they're not trading any of those guys to get a guy like CJ. Like, they've gotten to the point where they're competitive because of what they have on their roster, and they're not going to give that up.
Pretty good. Yeah, I think, and I mean, maybe a team would rather have Norm, right? Like, maybe they look at us and they say, okay, you know, we don't need somebody that can create their own shot that much. We want somebody who's more versatile and a more two-way player that's under contract. I've heard the Celtics have been interested in Norman Powell. I think that you could talk New Orleans into being interested in Norman Powell because he could help them a lot as well. What do you think? Do you think Norm is movable, or do you just want to keep him no matter what if you're the Blazers?
I mean, you'd look for a deal if he's there. If you can shave off the 19 mil and get something back, I think you go for it. Money's going to be a problem for this team anyway, but I mean, there's a world where it's not going to be the deadline. It's not going to be the next 10 days, but there's a world in the offseason where you potentially move both CJ and Powell, and you re-sign Amp, and he's your shooting guard of the future, and one of these two guys brings back and nets a small forward or a power forward for you. Maybe you move up and Nas is the small forward of the future, and but you got to get at that point. You gotta get, whether it's free agency or what the case is, another star, a guy who's a capable player to come in with Dame, or you're gonna lose Dame. That's kind of the problem. I see a lot of people out here talking about, oh, Amp is the future. And no, no, listen, Dame is the current. Like, I don't care about the future right now.
4 more
Give me
years.
3 more, yeah, 4 more
Mm-hmm.
years. I'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about the future. And you could get a million Anthony Simons in the late part of the draft. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And here's the deal: you could trade or let him go, and he's the next James Harden, a guy who was a bench player that got some spot moments, that got his own team, and now he's a 40, 50 point a night superstar in this league.
Good.
Doesn't have to play defense. Doesn't matter if you're going to get 50 points. He
Mm-hmm.
could very well be that guy because we decided to keep the Russell Westbrooks and the Ibakas of the world. You never know. But I think you got to concentrate on what's going to maximize Damian Lillard's next couple of years. And to me, it's keeping Norman Powell and it's moving CJ
Yeah, I'm with you.
and Amp.
100%.
You can't, and that's the dynamic of this team. Like, you're going to have Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Anthony Simons, and Norman Powell. You have four
Yep.
guards.
Yep.
I don't care that Powell plays small forward. You have four guards that are all 20, 18 million plus a year guys. I mean, Anthony's
Mm-hmm.
going to get that money. The other four already, or three already have it, and two of those guys are going into the high 30s, high 40s. It's not feasible to keep all four of them. So one,
Yeah.
probably two of them are gone.
Yep. I think so. I mean, and if it's not by the deadline, it's this off season. You're gonna have to figure it out. And if there's no way you're gonna be able to retain Simons and keep CJ on this
One
team. They're
one of
just
those two for sure have to go. They're too
have to.
similar. At least Powell
Yes.
gives you something different,
Yes.
with the defense and the
Yeah.
hustle, and but
Good on ball defender.
Anthony and CJ are just too similar, and that's why you and me discussed this. You don't think they're going to trade CJ. I don't think they're going to trade CJ because
Yeah.
it's a new GM. I just
Yes.
don't think he's going to be able to have the confidence, the freedom. Well, he might have the freedom, but I just don't think taking over so recently that he's going to make a franchise altering move of that magnitude.
I agree.
But I think they should. And I think that's where
Yeah.
you and me were talking about it. I think they need to try to move CJ if possible. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not. Rumblings around the league are talking about this is the one time that CJ's become more or less available unofficially in a lot of circles on the team. You've
Yep.
tweeted it or sent me the tweet of somebody who said it recently.
Yeah.
And
I
those talks are
I
there.
was I was shocked at how many people were actually on board with trading CJ and Norm, both of them. I think that's the thing that surprised me, and I don't think we necessarily agree with that as much as some of the other Blazers folks. But the other thing that so Jeremy Grant, you talked about him a little bit, just real quick. It came out this week that he wants a prominent role in 4 years, 100 million. Do you think he's worth 4 years, 100 million for the Blazers?
If you don't have CJ,
Yeah.
and at that point, you don't have to worry about resigning Amp. Yeah, I mean,
He
25 mil a year as your second option of scoring. I think that's feasible for him. Like,
Yeah.
he's not Giannis, he's not Durant, he's not
Yeah.
Kawhi, but he's also not asking for that kind of money. We're not talking super max. We're talking 20 to 25 million a year. Like,
They should do
listen,
it.
that's not terrible.
If they
It's
can do it,
not.
they should do it. And the thing is, he's a great two-way player. He's been on winning teams in Denver. When you say he wants a prominent role, what power forward is going to take his minutes from him on this team? If you could pair him with Dame, and then you could actually find a center that would complement Jeremy Grant a lot. I don't know if Nurkic and him would be a redundancy because it does seem like they kind of do similar things. But the money is not a trick if you can get rid of CJ.
No, you're saving yourself money if it's a straight up CJ
Yes.
for Grant trade.
Yep.
That's nothing. Better
We'll
player,
do
better contract. So
we'll do more trade stuff next week, but hopefully, I hope we move Rocco for his sake. One thing about Robert Covington is to come up a lot. It's like I hope he goes to a team like Utah that just
good.
lost. They
And
just
this is the
lost.
last thing I wanted to talk about. So I'm glad you transitioned to this
Okay,
because he was the
yeah,
last
I,
player in
I
the trade
hope we
talks. That's
trade
definitely
Rocco.
gone.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's gone. I hope we trade him to a contending team because he deserves to compete for a championship like he did in Houston. He's played really well in stretches defensively, but I think he's been asked to do something that's not feasible, which is fix Portland's defense as a weak side help defender, chopping up the lane, doing things like that. But I really feel bad for how miscast he was on this Portland team, and I hope that Rocco gets traded to a team that, like Utah, where he's competing for a championship.
Well, it's funny because Utah came up and the potential deal there that was a big topic was the Joe Ingles situation.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking back and forth about him versus Ingles on this team. It's a mute point now that Ingles has gotten hurt for the
Poor
rest of the
guy.
season.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make a difference, but that's the kind of player you're probably talking about. Some kind of a bench guy. It's not going to be, I mean, Rocco's not going to give you back your 2 first-round picks. You've lost the
No.
assets. But
No.
at this point with an expiring contract, you gotta try to get something back because he's not being re-signed. I mean, no matter what, he's not coming back to Portland. So you got to try to get something. And there's a million different teams, like you said, that could use a player like him. I think he's in the same kind of bubble with a contending team that's right there in the top 4 that
Mm-hmm.
maybe was willing to move a younger player or some picks to try to get that last defensive piece, whether it be off the bench or a potential starter. Utah's a great one. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Denver's kind of hurting now, but there could be a
Yeah.
team that might be able to move one of their guard. You could
Who
talk about a
knows?
Monty Morris, something like that. Dallas is a great
Dallas
comparison
would be a
because
good
they
fit for
need
him.
defense. They really need defense, and he's
Yeah.
cheap for a team that wouldn't have to give up Porzingis to bring him in. And they have
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of little. I mean, again, I don't really want any more guards on this team,
Yeah.
but you could look at guys like a Dwight Powell, maybe that you bring back. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
those weird maneuvering that you could do with him on a lot of these contending teams. The East, maybe you get a contending team that's looking to shed some salary and a guy that they don't want long term, and they need a different piece. You start looking into the Indiana Pacers. You start looking into maybe Toronto or the Heat. Those are options
Mm-hmm.
right now that I wouldn't say Toronto necessarily, but the Heat for sure are a team that might want to add Rocco. They love those types of players, and maybe you
Mm-hmm.
can go and draw back something from them. I don't know what, but
Yeah.
something from them. So he's going to be a name that's really going to start popping up in the next couple of days, probably
Mm-hmm.
as we get closer to the trade deadline. And by the time we record again, I'm thinking about this time next week, probably about 2 to 3 days before the deadline. We'll get another episode in. But yeah, I mean, the Joe Ingles thing was kind of funny. We were just talking about Joe Ingles gives you the playmaking. He's going to give you good, okay defense. He can shoot lights out. He's fine. I mean, I've seen
Mm-hmm.
him just absolutely roast the Blazers like we're just shrimp on his
Yeah.
bobby. But um,
Yeah.
I
That was
and
unfortunate.
that's it's interesting because Rocco, you lose that defense and 3-point shooting, but you gain a guy that could come in and play make and do some other
Yeah.
stuff, which would have been
I
not so
could
bad.
I could see Rocco going to Milwaukee and playing with Giannis because he can space the floor really well and be a nasty help side defender. I think a weak side defender for Giannis would be pretty amazing. But yeah, I hope they trade him and I hope they get something back from him. I mean, I'd take a second round pick at this point. I don't care. It doesn't have to be anything major.
And we don't talk enough
Just
about how
something.
he can still be packaged up with a guy like Anthony Simon to this point, or a CJ. Maybe you throw him and CJ
Yeah,
at Philly. They
sure.
take Covington back. They give you Ben Simmons, and
Mm-hmm.
let's say you take back Ben Simmons, and I don't know, it's just some scrub or a pick from them now, and all of a
Yes.
sudden they have CJ McCollum and Rocco and Harris and
Yep.
Embiid, and now they're ready to go out and play some prominent basketball in
Mm-hmm.
the Eastern Conference. So I don't know.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to the rumors that are going to pop up with that
Yeah,
for
me too.
sure.
I'm excited to see where he goes. All right. Well, I think that's everything. Is there anything else you want to cover, man?
No, it's just a continued
Okay.
play of Anthony looking great. Nurk's been beast mode. A lot of good things. The deadline coming up, we'll probably start breaking some other trade stuff that we've had come up. The New Orleans thing, who knows? It's been a prominent rumor that's been gaining a lot of steam with the CJ to Pelicans potential.
Yeah, I've
So
heard
we'll
that a
keep
lot.
following all these things and getting back on you guys. Obviously, follow us on the tweeters.
Yep.
We're there. We're tweeting. Instagram. I don't really post on Instagram anymore. Just don't care for that stuff. It's all about the tweeters. But obviously, subscribe. Continue to follow. We're going to try this new format of really not doing the recaps anymore, but just talking about the team in general, BS and back and forth. It's been a good time, man. I'm
Yeah.
ready for the next 10 days to unfold and the future of this team. Probably more so than any other point since 2016 is going to really be up in the air during this deadline. So
Yeah. Very pivotal moment for the Blazers over the next 10 days and then this next upcoming off season.
mm-hmm.
And we'll be here for you no matter what happens. Rip City Real Talk, just like
Yes, we
that.
will. Boom.
We out.